Holly with WoodlandsHits.com, and I have Stuart Schroeder here in the studio. You are running for the Woodlands Township Board of Directors, position 3. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you very much, Holly, and I welcome the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about my candidacy and why I'm running for the township.
Awesome. So you have a mission statement. Tell me what your mission statement is and why you decided to run for this position.
Well, I've always valued community service. I grew up in a small rural town in South Texas. I was not particularly athletically inclined, but I found a home in the Boy Scouts of America. I started in scouting as a Cub Scout and went through the Cub Scout program all the way through Weebles. Then I transitioned through the Arrow of Light into Boy Scouts.
Wow.
And through scouting, one of the fundamental things that you're taught is citizenship and community service.
Sure.
We did a lot of service projects in my town for cleanup, for celebrations. One that stands out in my mind is back in 1970, as part of a conservation effort, our unit planted 1,000 pine seedlings that were about 5 to 6 inches tall on the grounds of the local American Legion Hall.
Oh, wow.
And even going back to that area 46 later and seeing those pine trees it gives you a good feeling that,
Absolutely.
that you did something to help your community. I remember another time local town has an annual celebration. They call it Western Days. And in order to get ready for that, our scout troop went out on a couple of Saturdays prior to that and cleaned up trash along the highways leading into town for 2 or 3 miles on any side of the town. We collected all this trash and we built a big container down in the city park with a big sign, "This is the trash that you threw on your highways."
Wow.
And we're trying to help keep your city clean.
Good for you.
And so some of those things taught me the value of community service. I've always believed in exercising my right to vote. I never miss an election. When there's an election, I'm out there casting my ballot.
Good.
A number of years ago, back I'd say about 2006, the hot issue here in the Woodlands was the threat of annexation by the city of Houston.
Mm-hmm.
I began talking to people in the community. I started attending public meetings with the former Woodlands Community Association, trying to learn more about this. I'd heard about what had happened with Kingwood when Houston came in and annexed them, and they tried to fight that, and legally they could not, and ultimately were annexed. And so I was curious as to what leaders in the Woodlands thought might be a solution. I got involved in some other local issues, and at some point, several directors from the Woodlands Community Association said, "You ought to consider running for office." And at the time, I didn't realize or consider that I would ever do that. But the more I thought about it, I said, well, I'm going to give it a try. I like the community. This is where I've always wanted to live. And so I did run for the election. I won. And so I served two-year terms on the Woodlands Community Association. And through this time, it was a critical time when former Senator Tommy Williams and Houston Mayor Bill White were able to negotiate the agreement to avoid the Woodlands from being annexed. And ultimately, the voters overwhelmingly in a referendum turned out at the polls and ratified those agreements, which is basically where we're at today. Those agreements that were ratified were for 50 years, where the city of Houston could not annex the Woodlands until 2057. Subsequent to that, there was a part of the Woodlands that was in the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the city of Conroe, and those residents were concerned that they might be annexed by Conroe, and the Woodlands was able to take the similar agreement and negotiate that with Conroe to avoid them annexation. So they have the same deadline, 2057.
Oh, wow.
As a result of all of that, we needed to do something about the way the Woodlands was governed. I was part of the Woodlands Community Association. There were 2 other property owners associations that basically provided community municipal type services for the Woodlands. The Woodlands Association and the Woodlands Commercial Owners Association. So we had 3 entities all working under the umbrella of the community associations of the Woodlands. We were property owners associations. We were not governmental entities, but we did many of the functions that a government would do. in the town center area around the mall and the developing commercial area, there was a government entity called the Town Center Improvement District. And the way that these agreements with Houston and Conroe were implemented was to transform the Town Center Improvement District to be a governing structure, a governmental entity to cover the whole Woodlands. And that's what the effect of the referendums were. So the Town Center Improvement District expanded its boundaries to include the whole Woodlands and was renamed the Woodlands Township. So as to make this effective and to make a good transition, the community associations and the Town Center Improvement District each had representatives, and there was a transition team that got together and transitioned all of the services that the community associations had been providing into the Town Center Improvement District. So basically in late 2009 or so, I kind of, as a community association board member, voted myself out of a job because I felt we needed to move forward with the Woodlands Township.
Sure.
On January 1st, 2010, the Woodlands Township officially assumed all the operations of the former community associations, which included the fire department, the Parks and Recreation, and importantly, covenant administration. The township had the ability to administer the covenants that protect the property values and protect the lifestyle and the quality of life in the Woodlands. Something that a lot of municipalities cannot even do. And we're able to continue to do that today under the Woodlands Township. So I feel that in some way I had a role in getting us to where we are today with the Woodlands Township due to my service on the Woodlands Community Association.
That's fantastic.
So I feel a special place for the township and what it's been able to do. It's a unique form of governance. As far as I know, there's nothing else like it in Texas. We actually have the ability to levy a 2% sales tax that all goes toward our revenue stream. The 1% is levied by the township. Concurrently with the township is a Woodlands Township Economic Development Zone that levies an additional 1%. Those boundaries are identical. They overlay exactly. A lot of municipalities only can levy a 1% sales tax. And the important aspect of that is that sales tax is a significant portion of the township's annual budget. It brings in about 40% of the revenue. So translating that to property taxes, it lowers your property tax. And I'm a taxpayer, so I want to see my tax rate as low as possible while still providing all these essential services that we expect in the Woodlands.
Wow. So you've been a part of the community for a while. You've done a lot of volunteer work and public service and all of that. What do you feel are your qualifications to be on the board?
Well,
for position 3.
Number one is my service on the Woodlands Community Association.
Absolutely.
I can tell you the first year was amazing of what I learned about the community, all the different entities that work together to provide the services that we expect and want to see in the Woodlands. Being able to reach across different boundaries and meet people and work with other people to try to come together for a common goal. I would say number 2 is after the transition in 2010 to the Woodlands Township, I immediately ran for an election for my village association in Cochran's Crossing.
Okay.
As an area representative later, because I wanted to stay involved.
Sure.
And later that year, my peers elected me vice president of the village association. And the following year, our long-serving president, Nancy Becker, relocated out of the village, and I succeeded her as president in 2011, which is the role I continue to serve in today.
Awesome.
So one of the things that I try to do in the Village Association is I try to recruit guest speakers for each of our monthly meetings from different aspects of the community, where our board can hear from people, our citizens, and I want to stress our meetings are open to the public, can come and hear from people that have a role in our community.
Sure.
In the past, we've had the superintendent of schools for Conroe and Penn School District, Dr. Don Stockton there.
Yes.
We've had a representative from the Texas High-Speed Rail Corporation there. We've had the tax assessor, the chief appraiser, Mark Castleshoot, come in. I've had the president of the Chamber of Commerce come and speak to us. Next week, I was fortunate enough we got two speakers. We're getting Harris County Sheriff Ron Hickman
Nice.
and Constable Ryan Gable to come speak.
Very cool.
So it's an opportunity where and I like it because I learn things too.
Absolutely. That's great.
And in addition to that, I've gotten involved for several years. As I mentioned, I grew up in the Boy Scouts. Back in 2010, I was asked to come serve on the Tall Timbers District Committee as a district committee member. My sons also went through the scouting program. They're both Eagle Scouts, as I am. They pretty much finished their scouting career as scouts, and so I tried to help where I could in the district committee. Back in 2015, I was approached to be district chairman for the Tall Timbers District.
Wow.
And so
Congratulations.
I accepted that, and one of the bright spots in that is a few months ago, one of our scouts here in the Woodlands earned every merit badge that a scout could possibly earn in the Boy Scouts.
Wow.
And that's a very significant accomplishment. I think he ended up with 142 merit badges.
Whoa.
And I was fortunate enough in my role in the community to get a proclamation signed and a day declared on behalf of this young scout. And,
That's awesome.
and by the way, I'll give a shout out. His name's Austin Heno. He's a freshman at Kansas State, and his family lives in the Woodlands. And it's just a great example of what scouting can do.
Sure.
One of the other things that I do is I've always enjoyed the 4th of July parade we had in the Woodlands. I remember when my sons were young, we'd go down there when I wasn't working. Unfortunately, with my job with the railroad, I have to work holidays.
Absolutely.
But when I was not there, I would be at that parade. And back in 2010, a friend here in the community said, "Hey, I'm taking over the staging duties for the parade. You want to come be on my staging team?" I said, "Yeah, it sounds like an opportunity." I mean, it felt like something that I could relate to, being a traffic controller for the railroad.
Sure.
You know, that there was some similarities. And so I took that on, and then back in 2015, the same person said, "I need to step down from this role. Would you assume the role of staging director?" And I said, "Well, if the rest of the parade committee is interested in doing that or having me, I would accept the role."
Okay.
And they approved me joining them. And,
Well, you do a great job. It's a great parade.
well, thank you very much. We enjoy putting it on. It's for those who don't know, that parade is 100% volunteer driven.
Yes.
Like a lot of things in the Woodlands, it relies on volunteers. We're all volunteers on the parade committee. We all have different roles. And so for the last 2 years, I've got to be the staging director and work with a great team of staging volunteers to make this parade a reality.
That's great. That's really awesome. So, Stuart, why don't you tell me the main issues that you would like to address if you get elected for position 3 at the township?
I would say one of them is our quality of life. And I would, if I may, relate a personal story about the Woodlands and how I got here.
Absolutely.
I grew up in South Texas, as I mentioned. I started with the railroad actually in Houston and spent about a year and a half here in 1981, early 82. Then I relocated to San Antonio for most of the 80s, which is where I met my wife and enjoyed living there. I grew up close to San Antonio. In 1989, my employer, the former Southern Pacific, relocated all of the train dispatchers, closed our divisional dispatching office in San Antonio and relocated us to a regional center that they'd opened in Houston. So we relocated here to Houston, and I started hearing about the Woodlands. And I think shortly after we came here is when the pavilion may have opened. I didn't really know much about the Woodlands, but I kept hearing about it. In the mornings, I'd see the park and ride buses on the freeway, the Woodlands Express, and the more I learned about it, I said, that's kind of a neat place. And I wish I could afford to live there. Then I think in '93, if memory serves correct, the mall opened, and it was kind of always the thought that someday I was going to live in the Woodlands. And in late 1993, we received notification that the Southern Pacific was going to relocate all of the train dispatchers into a new system dispatching center in Denver, Colorado.
What?
So, yeah, that one kind of got me. And my older son was 2.5 at the time I got that notice. We just learned that my wife was pregnant with our younger son,
Mm-hmm.
and that the scheduled moving date was right around her due date.
Wow.
And so, the reality was that at some point in 1994, we were going to have to move.
Right.
And along with that thought was, I guess we'll never live in the Woodlands. The move does occur. Fortunately, the move fell back enough where it wasn't right on her due date. But when my younger son was 6 months old, I'm packing up what I can in the car and going to Denver and finding a temporary place to live and work and trying to find us a place to live
Sure.
and still get our house sold in Houston. I did that, and we found a 3-bedroom townhouse to live in suburban Denver.
Mm-hmm.
And in October of '94, we packed up what we could, cleaned out our house, moved to Denver, put a lot of our stuff in storage, and started house hunting, because at that point we realized we're probably going to be here a while. Fortunately, after about 8 months, found a home. And at that time, the Denver housing market was very hot, and housing was very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
But we did find an affordable house, and so we relocated into our home. The very week I was moving into our home, it was announced that the merger was occurring, that Union Pacific was going to acquire Southern Pacific. And so I kind of casually mentioned to my wife, I said, well, I give us 2 years in this house at most. I think they're going to move us all to Omaha, Nebraska.
Oh my gosh.
And so, we spent our days in Denver, and by 1997, we were going to Omaha, Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
So we pack up and move again.
Oh my goodness.
Buy a home in Omaha, and immediately, and what I've learned in the railroad world, when you hear things at work, in the workplace, there's a pretty good chance that there's some reality behind it.
Sure.
And the reality was that the railroad had gotten so big, and there were issues with a centralized dispatching center, that they were going to reopen a dormant dispatching center that Union Pacific had in Spring.
No way.
And so, in fact, a little article appeared in the Omaha paper on Super Bowl weekend in January of 1997 that kind of indicated that. In the following weeks, it was announced that yes, they were going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be the first of its kind dispatching center that would allow the different railroads, to bring their dispatchers together into the same room. That had never been done before.
Huh.
And so Union Pacific was very selective on who they were going to staff this office with. They wanted people that had prior experience in Texas and New Texas, and so I felt like I met those qualifications, so I applied for the job, and the first relocations happened in March of '98. The announcements were coming about so-and-so is going, and I came home from work one day, and I told my wife, I said, well, my name wasn't on the list, but they haven't finished, but so far, I guess we're not going.
Okay.
About an hour after I got home, it's one of the guys who's my boss today called me from Spring and said, would you like to come to Spring?
Nice.
And I was told there would be interviews and everything.
Sure.
And I said, yeah, when's my interview? He says, this is your interview. You want to come to Spring?
Oh.
I said, when? I said, let me start packing.
Right.
And so he said, it's probably, your move will probably come sometime in May. At that time, my older son was in kindergarten at a private school in Omaha. As it turned out, the day I was to report to Spring was the night of his graduation from kindergarten.
Oh.
So it's the one event in his life that I missed.
Oh.
So I was traveling down here to start my new job, but it worked out, and I was living in a hotel for a while, and my family was back in Omaha. But as soon as we could, they came down, and we had a few days to house hunt, and we looked at houses all over the area. And actually, my wife found a home she really liked off of 1488. I kind of not so subtly reminded her. I said, what did we always say? We wanted to live in the Woodlands.
Right.
and I really think I want to live in the Woodlands.
Mm-hmm.
And so we kind of backed away from that house and kept looking till we found a house in the Woodlands.
Mm-hmm.
In July 5th, 1998, I got to live in the Woodlands,
Nice.
and I've been there here ever since.
That's amazing.
So it's, in a sense, it was kind of a dream come true for us.
That's great. So you really are passionate about the community and where you live, and you want to
Absolutely.
take care of everything. So, and you also mentioned that you wanted to talk about like the taxes as well.
Yes, I think it's important to keep the community affordable for families.
Mm-hmm.
The expectations in the Woodlands for the amenities and services are actually quite high. There's a lot in terms of our parks, our pathways, entertainment, first-rate fire department. Our Woodlands Fire Department is an ISO 1 rating, which is the best of any fire department in North America.
Oh.
And there's not many fire departments that achieve that rating. What that means to property owners is a decrease in the premiums for your property insurance.
Interesting.
I think our Woodlands Township provides a lot of services for a very low property tax rate.
Mm-hmm.
The property tax rate in 2016 was 23 cents per hundred, and they have actually maintained it at 23 cents per hundred for 2017, while still providing a very good level of services.
Mm-hmm. And last but not least, you wanted to talk about the governance as well.
Well, as I mentioned, going back to my days on the Woodlands Community Association Board, in the transition from a property owner's governance into the special district, which is the Woodlands Township, I felt I had a small role in that, and I've seen how the Woodlands Township has emerged and how it works. I believe that the governance structure works very effectively.
Mm-hmm.
We are under really no urgent threat to incorporate it. Ultimately, I do want to see us incorporate.
Mm-hmm.
I think and become a home rule city. That's what your major cities are, like the city of Houston's a home rule city.
Mm-hmm.
There's some barriers to doing that. In new incorporations, is my understanding of the Constitution and the statutes in the state of Texas that a new city incorporates as a general law city, which is generally a city of under 10,000 people. It has limited abilities to govern. It only can do the things that the statutes say it can do, whereas in a home rule city, writes its own charter and has much broader powers. One of the shortcomings of a general law city is that they cannot enforce covenants. And the covenants are a very important aspect of the quality of life in the Woodlands.
Sure.
So that would be an issue that needs to be examined and possibly solutions found through the legislature.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at the process as an ongoing process. The Woodlands officially opened in 1974. I was part of the celebration for the 40th anniversary back in 2014. So roughly now we're coming up on our 42nd anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
This agreement with the cities of Houston and Conroe doesn't expire until 2057. That's 41 years from now. So roughly, if you were to take the timeline of the Woodlands past going forward to the end of this agreement, we're right halfway in our history.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see a big rush to incorporate recklessly. I think it should be a very measured process. I think we need to determine all of the costs involved. I think we need to figure out, again, the covenant issue is one thing. How the best way that we can transition from a special purpose district into a home rule city. If we were to do it, actually, the general law incorporation guidelines don't fit the Woodlands. It's just 10,000 people or less. We're roughly at 115,000 people today.
Right.
So I just don't see that, as it stands right now, that we could do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we have some very effective people in our legislative delegation in Austin. They will convene again this coming January for their session, and I'm sure that our existing board probably has some legislation that they would like to introduce in that session.
Sure.
It might take that session. It might take a couple more sessions to try to take care of some of these problems so we can incorporate responsibly.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to be careful that we don't rush something, and which would cause an unintended consequence of a higher tax.
Yeah,
I think that would hurt our economic climate. It would hurt our business climate. As I mentioned earlier, our township revenue stream is 40% sales tax. And I think an important part of that is our business climate, our nonprofits, our educational institutions. I think we're all part of this community together, and I think the responsible path is for everybody working together to try to plan a responsible, measured approach to incorporation.
Could not agree more.
You know, as in my personal life, when I make a major decision that involves a financial type decision, I probably overanalyze everything. I'm gathering data, and I'm very reluctant to pull the trigger until I really feel comfortable that I've gotten as much information as possible to make the right choice.
Okay.
And so, therefore, I would apply that line of thought to the incorporation.
Mm-hmm. Makes complete sense. Well, Stuart Schroeder is going to be running for the Board of Directors, position 3 for the Woodlands Township, and voting, early voting starts
October 24th.
October 24th, and, get out. I mean, we need to we're working really hard here at the station to really raise awareness about voting and getting out into the community and getting your voice heard. And so I really appreciate you coming into the studio today to talk about your upcoming election, and we wish you the best. Is there anything else that you would like the listeners to know?
Yes, Holly, I would also like to mention that I know it's a presidential election years, and there's a number of national offices, statewide offices,
Mm-hmm.
and some people tend to vote a straight party ticket.
Mm-hmm.
What I want to emphasize is the Woodlands Township is a nonpartisan election, and we're what's called a down ballot race.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to vote a straight ticket in the major races, that's fine.
Right.
But remember to vote on page 2 and look for the nonpartisan races that will, if you punch the straight ticket button, you don't get to vote in those races automatically. You have to separately go and vote in those down ballot races, which is where the Woodlands Township race is.
Okay.
So please remember to vote on page 2.
All right. I'm going to make sure and I put that in the description when I put this together for you. So again, Stuart, thank you so much for coming in, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you, Holly.
Thank you.